Hey everyone, and welcome back. This is one of a series of videos looking at the American political system. In this video, we're going to explore some of the foundational concepts in the study of politics, namely power, authority, and legitimacy. These are concepts that are central to the understanding of broader issues in the American political system and in political systems more broadly, and we'll look at some of these others in later videos. So let's get to it. Let's start with the idea of power. What do we mean by power? There are a number of definitions we could offer, but a simple way to think about power is the ability to do something or to act in a particular way, or to force or compel another actor to act in a particular way. The exercise of power can take a variety of forms. We can see it in the military power of a state, which can be operationalized symbolically through military parades, or more directly through the use of military force. We might also think of the domestic powers of the state, including the police power that it wields, or the powers of influence and diplomacy, often called soft power, exercised by both individuals and institutions. We sometimes overlook the importance of economic power, though it operates both domestically and internationally in the service of particular interests. And finally, there's often the power of the people exercised through mobilization and protest, civil disobedience, and a host of other avenues. So, if power can take many different forms, it's hardly surprising that power operates everywhere in politics. Indeed, political science is often defined by its focus on the study of the exercise of power in all its forms. But how does power relate to ideas of legitimacy and authority? In the context of American politics, we might think of the respective powers of the various branches and levels of government. The President of the United States can veto legislation passed by Congress, while the Supreme Court can declare the actions of the President unconstitutional. These are all examples of power. So too is the economic power exercised by wealthy individuals and corporations through donations to political campaigns, or the power of the people to protest and demand political change. But if power is the ability to do something or compel an actor to behave in a particular way, we might think of authority as the right of an individual or group to exercise that power. Importantly, the idea of authority does not necessarily mean that such rule is accepted. That's the concept of legitimacy, which we'll get to in a few minutes. Authority is only that it's authorized. Authority, in other words, connotes an acceptance of the right of that individual or group to make decisions or to issue directives, that is, to exercise power. In his classic essay entitled Politics as Vocation, Max Weber argued that there were three types of authority, and understanding these three types of authority will help to clarify the distinction between legitimacy and authority. The first is traditional authority. Traditional authority is rooted in the idea of customs and, of course, tradition. Authority is granted because that's how it's always been done. In such a system, power is often inherited and is rooted in the sanctimony of immemorial traditions. The British monarchy is an example of traditional authority. Religious systems also tend to be based on traditional authority. Charismatic authority is rooted in the personal charisma and appeal and the qualities of a specific individual leader. Unlike traditional authority systems where loyalty is to the institution like the church or the king, charismatic authority is rooted in the specific individual in that position. Many authoritarian states operate on the basis of charismatic authority, and both Benito Mussolini and Adolf Hitler are often used as examples of charismatic authority. Finally, legal rational authority is rooted in the idea that authority is committed to impersonal rules, processes, and institutions rather than to individuals or tradition. It's embodied in the idea that society functions according to a set of rules that are applied administratively and judicially in accordance with known principles, regardless of the specific leaders in power or parties to a conflict. It's the principle embodied in the concept of rule of law, which we return to later in the course, and it's the basis of authority on which the United States and most other democratic political systems operate today. Summarizing these three models of authority, then, we might say that charismatic authority is rooted in the influence of the individual leader who possesses special or even unique characteristics that lead them to rule. However, because they are individually centered, such systems tend to be less stable than other systems of authority. Traditional authority is rooted in the routines, traditions, and beliefs held by society. Cohesion is developed around a feeling of common identity or purpose, and leadership tends to be institutionalized through individuals in specific positions. And finally, in a legal rational system, authority is rooted in the equal application of established rules and processes. In the context of American politics, authority is rooted usually in documents like the Constitution or in concepts like rule of law and the consent of the governed. For example, the various branches of the government derive their power from the Constitution, which outlines the powers and responsibilities of each branch. In this sense, the United States' political system is rooted primarily in a legal rational framework. So now if we understand the concept of power and authority, what do we mean by legitimacy? Legitimacy refers to the question of whether or not the use of power and authority is perceived to be correct and proper. That is, it is the belief that the decision-making process was justified and right. As such, it involves both a moral judgment and an acceptance of the right to govern and the exercise of power by a specific individual, group, or institutional structure. In other words, a government might be said to be legitimate when its authority is accepted by those over whom it exercises power or over whom it governs. In the context of American politics, legitimacy is usually connected to concepts like democracy and the rule of law. A government is considered legitimate when it seemed to be representing the will of the people and upholding their values and beliefs. That's it for now. Please leave any questions you have in the comment section below, and thanks for watching, everyone. Have a good day. Bye.